working capital? That means capital is working?
Let me explain the concept of working capital in the simplest form. Take your house where your mother or your wife has to purchase, monthly groceries. What all she purchases? She purchases rice, she purchases wheat, she purchases vegetables, and she purchases different kinds of masala. Why she has to purchase? Because day in and day out, she has to cook food for you, morning, afternoon, and then evening. So do you observe that, like you go and buy it for a month. Okay, certain items you buy it for a month, certain items, you buy it for 3 months, or there are certain items, which you store it for 1 year. So items which are relatively costly, what you do is, you buy it for a month. Items, which are of very small value, you buy it, say, probably for 3 months or 6 months or for 1 year. If you feel they are going to be spoiled, then what you do is, you purchase it for maybe for 3 months or 4 months and all. You don't run down to the shop and then, this afternoon if your mother wants to cook a meal, she doesn't run down and then buy only to the extent of what is required for that afternoon. Or similarly in the night, again you don't run down to the shop. So you don't do that. What you do is you have a stock of rice, you have a stock of pulses, wheat, etc. and some masalas, etc. and all. So therefore you see, you spend these funds for storing all these materials. Okay, this you spend funds, you spend your capital. I mean, so to say, if it is an organization, we call it as capital. If it is your own house, we call it as funds. You spend the funds for running the house. So you spend the funds on all these things for storing all these things because you don't want to run, every minute you don't want to run down the shop and all. So you store it for a month and also, and then every month you go and then replenish your stock and all, like rice, wheat, etc. and all. So therefore you see this thing is working for you. That means by stocking this thing, what is happening is that your mother is making it convenient for you so that she can serve you food all the 3 times for the whole month. So similarly, when it comes to the companies, they also have to do the same thing. When they want to manufacture, they require a lot of raw materials, different kinds of raw materials. So what they do, they also do the stocking. They don't run down to the shop because companies cannot run down to the shop every moment. Tomorrow, if they want to manufacture, they cannot run down today. Maybe it is possible in the case of certain raw materials, but not in the case of many raw materials. Some raw materials have to come from very far off places, etc. So what do? They do the planning and then they stock the raw materials for a month. Certain raw materials which come from say abroad, they stock it for 3 months because they don't want to run out of stock and then they don't want to stop production. So you see, this capital is put for for storing all this raw materials. So therefore this capital is being put for productive use and then that's why we call it as, this is called as the working capital. Suppose I have an idle cash. I don't call this working capital because the cash is not working because it's idle. But other things, the raw materials, etc., they are working. So that's why it's called as working capital. So that's why we call it as a working capital. So basically what I want to summarize is that, like, we don't want to run out of stock. So therefore we store certain amount of stock. But then again we do not excessively store stocks because if you want to store stock, more of our capital will be blocked up in those raw materials. Moreover, that raw materials can become obsolescence. That means they can be spoiled and all. So according to the requirement, according to the lead time, according to the time taken for the raw material to reach our factory, from where those raw materials can be sourced, accordingly we have to plan and accordingly we have to store the raw materials. Suppose if they are easily available, we may store them for less period of time. If they are very difficult and we have to get it from somewhere abroad or far off places, then comparatively we have to store it for more number of days. The purpose is we don't want to block our funds unnecessarily in those raw materials because you got to pay interest. These funds have to come from the bank borrowings, and if you unnecessarily you block your funds on these raw materials and keep your raw materials idle, then you got to pay interest, and then it will reduce the profit of the company. So this is in simplest form, this is called as the working capital.
That means in case of perishable items, we generally don't store it more.
Exactly. Yeah, if it's a perishable items, you see, like, hotels and all, when they manufacture, they also manufacture cakes, they also manufacture food, But because it's a perishable item, they cannot keep for a day, more than a day, or maybe 2 days in a freezer. Ultimately, they have to throw it out. So it depends upon again the nature of the industry. Suppose if it's a manufacturing industry, they are manufacturing not perishable but durable items. They can store it for a longer period of time. But hotel industry, because they are manufacturing perishable finished goods, they cannot stock vegetables for 6 months or 7 months. They store it just for maybe 2-3 days and then they go and replenish them.
This presentation is brought by eduzon.in in the interest of students. Our mission is to educate, empower, clarify your doubts and evaluate. For more details, visit us at eduzon.in or contact 903 207 1100.